So, back in 1977, a simple blue box hit the shelves that would literally change gaming forever. We're talking about the Dungeons& and Dragons basic set. It was just a 48-page rulebook, but it was so much more than a game. It was a rescue mission. It's the reason D&D went from this obscure hobby to a cultural phenomenon. But here's the crazy part. Its creation was all wrapped up in corporate warfare and design ideas that gamers are still arguing about today.
Okay, let's just dive right into the heart of it, because this is a fascinating question. How on earth did an academic, an associate professor of neurology with zero professional game design experience, end up being the person who saved D&D? The answer tells you everything you need to know about where this hobby came from and where it was about to go.
So, to really get why this 1977 set was such a big deal, you have to look at what came before it. The original 1974 game, the Little Brown Books, was brilliant, no doubt, but it was also a complete mess. It was arcane, disorganized, and written for this tiny niche of hardcore wargamers. The Holmes basic set was the total opposite. It was a gateway, a structured and accessible on-ramp designed to finally let everyone else in on the secret.
Okay, so first up, let's look at the problem Holmes was actually hired to solve. Just how ridiculously hard it was to learn how to play original D&D. You see, the original rules weren't really a complete game so much as a chaotic suggestion. They just assumed you were already an expert in a medieval wargame called Chainmail. The rules themselves were scattered all over the place, and you basically had to be a detective just to piece together how anything was supposed to work. This was a huge barrier that was keeping D&D from ever reaching a bigger audience.
And this is where our unlikely hero steps in. Not some hotshot designer from inside the company, but an academic from California who really just wanted to play a fun game with his kids.
And this quote from the man himself just says it all. Dr. J. Eric Holmes, a professor of neurology at USC, tried to read the original rules and, despite being a literal brain expert, couldn't make heads or tails of them. So he did the most academic thing imaginable. He wrote a letter to the author, Gary Gygax, and basically volunteered to edit the entire thing into a version that a normal person could actually understand.
I mean, Holmes approached this thing like a proper research project. He didn't just rewrite the rules, he play-tested his new version like crazy. And not just with kids, which is what you'd expect. He also ran games for doctors and nurses at the medical center, grown adults who had never heard of a war game in their lives. He was stress testing his rules to make sure they could work for anyone.
One of Holmes's most brilliant innovations wasn't even a rule. It was a teaching tool. He included this example of play, which was basically just a written transcript of a game in progress. For the first time ever, someone who had never seen D&D being played could read what it was supposed to sound like. It was a cultural Rosetta Stone that taught you not just the rules, but the vibe of role-playing.
All right, let's get into the rules themselves, because Holmes didn't just clean things up. He made some, let's just say, controversial changes to make the game faster and a whole lot deadlier.
Okay, so this one? This is probably the most argued over rule in the entire box. In Holmes' basic D&D, every single weapon, from a little dagger to a giant two-handed polearm, did the exact same damage, 1d6. And for a lot of people, this was just nuts. It felt completely unrealistic and seemed to strip out any tactical choice. But there was a reason for it.
But here's the thing you gotta understand. In early D&D, a combat round wasn't a few seconds. It was a full minute of fighting. So a hit wasn't one clean sword swing. It was the abstract result of a whole minute of chaos, parries, feints, lucky shots. And in that context, a dagger finding an opening could be just as deadly as a longsword. So yeah, it totally sacrificed realism, but what it gained was speed and this beautiful, simple abstraction.
Then you have the poor magic user. Man, they were fragile. At first level, you had maybe 2 or 3 hit points and exactly 1 spell to cast for the whole day. I mean, 1 unlucky hit from a goblin and poof, you're rolling up a new character. It made them a huge liability in any dungeon.
But Holmes' solution to this, it was absolutely brilliant. He added a unique rule that let first-level magic users craft their own magic scrolls. Now, it was expensive, it cost 100 gold pieces and a week of downtime, but this one rule totally changed how you played the class. It created this perfect gameplay loop. You risk your neck in the dungeon to get gold, so you can turn that gold directly into more spells. It gave the weakest class a path to power. But, behind all this clean, elegant design, there was a super messy story unfolding.
The Holmes Basic set wasn't just a great introduction to D&D. It was also a weapon in a really bitter corporate war.
See, TSR had this, let's call it a two-pronged strategy. The story they told everyone was that they were making a simple basic game for new players and a complex advanced game for the experts. But the secret real reason was that it was a legal play designed to cut D&D's co-creator Dave Arneson out of royalties from the much more profitable advanced D&D books.
And this timeline just lays it all out, right? The basic set comes out, and since it's legally part of the original game, Arneson gets paid. But then as the advanced D&D books start rolling out, TSR claims they're a totally new game, a new IP. Arneson, obviously, disagreed and sued them. And in the end, when it looked like they were going to lose big time in court, TSR caved and settled, giving Arneson a piece of all the core AD&D books going forward. So yeah, that was the whole argument from Gygax's side. AD&D is a completely different game. But during the lawsuit, it became pretty clear that wasn't true. Experts showed that AD&D was built on the exact same DNA as the original. Same 6 abilities, same classes, same spells. That argument just completely crumbled under scrutiny.
So after all that, the drama, the lawsuits, the brilliant design, what's the actual legacy of this little blue box? Well, you might be surprised just how much of its DNA is still floating around in the game we all play today.
You know that sample dungeon Holmes wrote for the box, the Tower of Zenopus? Well, get this. Decades later, it was officially pulled right into the 5th edition adventure Ghosts of Saltmarsh. The nearby village of Port Town became the official town of Saltmarsh, and that evil thaumaturgist from the dungeon, he became Kelladek, a key character in the new adventure. Holmes's little creation is now official D&D canon. How cool is that?
And the set's spirit is also kept alive by something called the Old School Renaissance, or the OSR. This is a massive movement of modern gamers and designers who are absolutely fascinated with the minimalist feel and the deadly high-stakes rules of early D&D. For them, this old box isn't some dusty relic, it's like a masterclass in how to design a great game.
This has even inspired modern games like Blueholme. It's a retro clone that takes the unique rules from Holmes' set and expands them all the way up to level 20. It's basically a playable what-if scenario. It lets you see what D&D might have become if it had followed Holmes' streamlined path instead of going down the more complex road to AD&D.
And that really brings us to a final thought on the whole legacy of the little blue box. The story of the Holmes Basic set really forces you to ask a pretty fundamental question about D&D, and maybe about game design in general. I mean, think about it. For over 40 years, the game has just gotten bigger, more rules, more options, more books. But did it actually need all that to get better? Or did this elegant, brutal, and brilliantly simple 48-page book have everything the game truly needed right from the start? It's something to think about.